Hello everyone, it's Melanie. I wanted to share kind of the evolution of an idea with you today. I'm going to make some little pouches, laminated pouches, and I thought really quick, if I can do it quickly, I'm going to share with you kind of the progression or the evolution of this idea. So a couple of weeks ago, Natasha at Treasure Books, who I'll link to her video down below, she was making pouches out of book text. So her pouch was, I think she used multiple pieces of paper, but basically, and it's kind of like they were trimmed and sewn. But she was making pouches that were sort of like this and then stitched, and then she was holding them with a clip at the top. So when I saw her video, it made me think about all the little pouches that I use. I have a bunch of these pouches, these little plastic pouches that I've bought, and these are a little different. They have a gusset, so they hold more. They have a Velcro closure, and I love these things. I got them at a place called Scrap, which is a used kind of, it's a craft supply resale. I mean, it's really awesome place, but I think I paid $1 a piece. I mean, they were kind of pricey, so I didn't buy that many, but I love them. I love organizing stuff into them, and so that her pouches gave me the idea to make some pouches kind of based on these pouches that I like. And I like that those are plastic and stuff. So then I thought about these things. This is from back in 2014. I did a little online workshop with Ray Missigman, I think is how you pronounce her name. And I don't know if she's on YouTube, but I can put a link to her website down below. But these things I did, this is like she was making a different kind of book, but I turned mine into a book that I used for embroidery that I go to a needlework group where I sit and do embroidery, and I had needles and all this kinds of supplies and stuff in here, and I liked it because it was, in a book form, and I could just take it with me. So this is paint on canvas, and these are some other pouches that I made back then, 2014. So this one I would use to put, to carry art supplies in, and it's just got my painting design on the back. And then this is a smaller one I made. I made a whole bunch of these, but these are the only two I could put my hands on today. These have Velcro. This one, my daughter and I have used. I think my daughter used this in high school art class. This held her pencils. So you can see how dirty it is on the inside with graphite. But this has been around since 2014, and it's been well loved, and it held up, and I really love these. So this inspired me to use my collage pages. So these two pages are in my Etsy shop, but I thought about, okay, what about using these pages to make my pouches? So this is my first version of the pouch, and combining sort of the idea of this bright painty paper and this plastic pouch that's laminated, I decided to try sewing through some contact paper. And I usually don't put any kind of, I won't sew through any type of adhesive in my sewing machine because it gums up the needle, it gets your needle all sticky, and it can really mess up the bobbin race and things like that. So, but I tried a tiny little piece, like one stitch at a time to see if the adhesive was sticking to the needle, and it actually didn't. So I used this contact paper, clear matte contact paper, it's self-adhesive, and I laminated one of my printables that I printed out on cardstock. So this is the first one that I made, and for a closure, I like this closure, this Velcro, but it's really loud. So depending on where you are, you may not want, to interrupt everything with a loud Velcro. So I put a snap on this one. This is a garment snap. and it's too thick. I don't like the thickness of it. I mean, it works fine. It's too thick. I didn't like it. So that was the first version. But then I thought about this little pouch that I have, and this came in an online order from Anthropology. Actually, it's back in 2013, a quilt that I bought from Anthropology for my daughter, and this is what my receipt came in. So I thought, well, I can use this kind of closure, you know, with two little tabs. I don't know what this is called, but this little string tie closure. So I was going to do that with this piece. So I laminated this piece, and I put the first eyelet and tab in the string up in the top one. But then when I went to punch the hole for this eyelet, which needed to be, you know, down here, I realized that I don't have enough throat space on this eyelet punch to go that far down. So this wasn't going to work to set the eyelet. So I punched a hole. Can you see that hole down in there? I punched a hole with my screw punch. And then I was going to put the eyelet in with an eyelet setter with a hammer and whatnot. But I tested it a couple times, and it works great on fabric and stuff, but I was not happy with the results on some pieces that I tested. So ultimately I ended up I just stuck a label over this to cover up the hole, and I just thought, well, I can just wrap this all the way around the envelope to keep it closed. And this I really liked because this is, you know, super flat. The string is a great closure. It's not going anywhere. So that was the second version. So then I did this version. This is also with the transparent matte paper, and I used, again, some craft paper. I think this time I actually laminated two pieces of craft paper together and then put my eyelet in. And for this one, I trimmed a little scoop on this edge here because I think it makes it a little easier to get down into it. So that was what went on this version, that's when I added the scoop. So then I pulled out some of this is an old painting on canvas that I did in 2014, and I thought, well, this would look cool. It would look kind of like oilcloth, I think, with this matte finish, this matte laminate on canvas would look really on this, like, because you can see, even in the printout, you can see the canvas. But then I also thought I would try another laminate product, which I tried this, which I already had, which I think this is Duck brand, peel and stick laminate. Well, that's Spanish. There it is, clear laminate. And this one's glossy, and I didn't like it as much. I didn't get the feel that I wanted with the oilcloth on this because it's so glossy, and it's actually not sticking as well as I don't know if you can see, there's some little bubbles right there. It's actually not sticking as well as the Contact brand paper. And for this I used a playing card for my little string tab. So that's kind of where I am now. That's what I got to. And on this one, you can see I forgot to cut the little scoop. So I made myself a list of the order to do these in so that I would remember to show you, so you don't forget any of the steps. Because once you've sewn it together, it's kind of too late. So the next thing, I filmed this just a minute ago, and I realized I had to refilm. But this is my wallpaper printout. So I laminated this to the piece of contact paper, and then I stitched the scoop, and then there's the little, I'm almost ready to fold this one. I need to stitch the outside. But I thought I'd start again, show you another one, so I can actually show you from start to finish. So this is a design that I did. I drew these flowers on my iPad and then put it into my computer and made it into a repeating design. And I cut my scoop. So this is The 8.5, it's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but I trimmed it, had to trim it down because I haven't been printing borderless. My printer does print borderless, but I have to print at the highest setting to get it to print borderless at the best setting. And when I, excuse me, when I do that, it uses a lot of ink, so I haven't been printing at that setting. So these are 8.5 by 11 with the little border cut off, and they're printed on a matte presentation paper. So to cut this little scoop, I originally tried all kinds of different things, but what I decided is I just been sort of folding it in half like this. Here, I guess I can do another one. So just kind of fold it in half like this. And you could do this after you laminate it too. I don't see why not. And I was starting at the outside corner and then just kind of cutting a scoop. So that's about 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, half an inch. This one I went down a full inch and it's really too deep. That scoop is too deep. But so that's all I've been doing to cut these out. There's no magic formula that I came up with. Believe me, I tried because I used my compass. I used some of the biggest bowls I could find to try to get a perfect scoop, and then I decided, that's too much trouble. So I have my piece of paper here on cardstock with my scoop cut out, and then I've trimmed a piece of contact paper. So I'm gonna laminate these together. And really the thing about these pouches that I was so excited about was that I could sew through this contact paper without messing up my machine. That was the part that I was really excited about because I had never tried stitching through contact paper. So there's and I'm just gonna put my cardstock down, face down on my contact paper. And then this is just a bone folder. And I'm gonna work on that with my bone folder. And then you can either use your paper cutter or your scissors just to trim that laminate off. And if you cut your scoop, if you're doing a scoop, if you cut your scoop after you laminate, then you wouldn't have to trim it. Let me just trim this off real quick. So the next thing that we'll do is we're gonna stitch along the edge of that scoop to kind of finish that edge. So there's scraps of that. Oh, stuck to my finger. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is stitch this edge first. We have to stitch this edge independently. So that's the first thing we're going to stitch. Pull my machine over here, and I'm just going to stitch fairly close to the edge, just straight across here, to kind of finish it. And like I said, this scoop is really too deep, but it's fine. So the next thing I'm gonna do after I stitch my scoop, is round the corners. So this is what's gonna be my flap in the front. And I did just round those two corners. Because I thought it looked nice. And then after that, the next thing we're gonna do is fold it. But before I do that, I had another idea, and that was because I wanted to use, this is a bigger piece of, a bigger painting that I did, and I was gonna cut out some letters and put them in the middle here. And I thought this would be a really pretty pouch, fold it up like so. And then in this empty space here, on the front of the pouch, I could stitch a label right there. And then after I thought of that, I thought, well, if I stitch a label on here, and then I write on it, I'm gonna mess up. So that's why I like using transparencies and making little pockets. So I could actually stitch a transparency on here and then slide a piece of paper down in there. So I think that's what I'm gonna do on this one, but we're still gonna have to fold it first. So you will need your bone folder because this contact paper, it makes the paper not want to fold, but you know, that's fine. Just press it down with your bone folder. Get a good, oh, look, the pattern matches up. I love that. So now I can stitch this little transparency on as a pocket, and I think I'm gonna put it like right there. That way it won't, the string wrapping around won't interfere with it. So let me just stitch this on real quick. Make sure it's straight. I don't think it's straight. So there I've stitched my little transparency on, and then I can make a label, you know, and put it in here. So I can write on this piece of paper and stick it in my little thing there, and not when my handwriting is ugly, it won't bother me as much. So now I put a little label on it. So then we folded it, we rounded the corners, folded it up. So the next thing we're gonna do is stitch we're gonna stitch it closed. So to do that, I've been stitching it from this side because generally your sewing looks better from the top than the bobbin. And if you stitch it on this side, then that means that the right side of the flap is going to have the bobbin stitching on it, and I would prefer the flap to look nice and the back of it. So I'm going to stitch the entire thing this direction, upside down. So we're only going to stitch, we're just going to stitch from one bottom corner all the way up across the top and then back down. So let's stitch that. Just those three sides, we don't need to stitch the bottom. Okay, so once that's stitched, now our pouch is sewn together. So now we just need to put the little eyelet on here to close it. So for the little eyelet, at first I was using just some craft paper, and then it was kind of flimsy, so I laminated or glued two pieces of this craft paper together. And then I also used, I punched some these are just playing cards, and I punched some circles out of those because they're a little heavier. So that was also an option. And then for this one, which is I think the one I'm going to use on here, this is some really heavy black cardstock that I have. So I punched a piece of glitter cardstock and a piece of this really heavy black cardstock with my 1-inch circle punch, and I just glued them both together to make this, you know, sturdy. It's a pretty sturdy little tab. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to find the center of this. Couple of ways you could do it. This is a centering ruler. I think it's right about there. That looks pretty good. And because of the reach on this crop thing, you can only go so far up. But I actually punched this for another pouch and then decided not to use it. So I'm just gonna repunch that hole. See, that's as far as I can go up, so it's kind of forced to put it right there. So my string, here's my string, and this is just some 100% cotton thread that I bought at Hobby Lobby. It's next to the tatting and embroidery floss and stuff. So I just cut a length of this, probably, I mean, this is like 28 inches. It doesn't need to be that long, but that way you can trim it after you get it put together. So I'm going to put the string in from the front to the back of my flap, pull that kind of over to the side, then I'm going to put my tab on and my eyelet through all of that, like so. And then I'm going to use this to set my eyelet. Yes, I'm using this right. Okay, so there's, it didn't go all, it didn't do it right. So there's my eyelet with the string in it. And so then I can just wrap my string around. And I've just been doing it over once, and I mean, you could do it 2 or more times, but I guess actually you could even wrap it around more than once, but I've just been wrapping it around one time and then just like that to secure it, and then I'm just cutting my string right about there and putting a little knot in the end of it so it doesn't unravel. So that's all there is to it. And then you can fill this with goodies. I may put money in mine. Just joking, it was just sitting there. But anyway, just an idea. And I thought I would also kind of share how an idea for me sort of evolves from seeing Natasha's video on making pouches out of book paper, how it kind of evolved for me into these laminated pouches made out of some of my art prints. So anyway, if you have any questions, just put them in the comment section below and I'll try to answer them, and go make some pouches. See y'all in the next video.